Hello everyone, and welcome to a short video where I will discuss the two card decks for solo PTG football. I'm not going to run play examples exactly in this video. I will just be talking mostly about the decks. So, first, a couple of production issues. Yes, for whatever reason, this thing still appears pink and blue. I know I cannot remove the colors in post-production. I tried in the other video. You will notice that the colors in general are better. The lighting is better on this particular video. For the images, in the intro video, I put up all of the images for all of the cards and team sheets and game pieces. Except the rules. If anyone had noticed, I did not put the rules in the intro video. The simple answer is that I was still messing with the format a little bit, and I actually did change the front page slightly. So that's why you didn't see it in the intro video. So for this video, I probably will not put all of the card images up. But if you own the game, you can follow along anyway. If you don't own the game, you'll be able to follow along close enough. So we're going to discuss these two decks. So we have what I call the 1 to 5 steps deck, which uses the first step and the second step that are located on the field display, and this is used for play selection, both offensively and defensively. Uses, as I explained in the original video, James Gordon's solo variant for Status Pro Football. It's the same concept. I've just updated it and streamlined it. So we'll talk about that deck first, and then we'll go to the action deck or fast action card, as you will. So let's look first at the two tables that are on the field display. So the first table is the game situation table, and it is first through fourth down at the top, and then letters A through M down the side. And if you own the game, take a look at the table. What you'll notice is that they're mostly on first and second down, the yardages and the letters are clustered together. So the variation that can occur from step 2 can be dramatic, but it can also be very minor. So, as I explained in the original video, first and 10 is always letter G. First and 5 is letter F. First and 15 is letter H. Or, I'm sorry, first and 20 is letter H. So, as an example. So what you'll notice is that these go hand in hand with the play call that are on these deck cards. Steps 3, 4, and 5. So the letters, you'll notice if you look at the chart, if you own the game, and I put this, you'll see this up on the screen, probably not for this entire description. It may have already passed, actually, in terms of an image. But you will notice that it allows for some variation in terms of play call, in terms of position on the of the ball and the down and the yards to go. What is interesting is that I studied the table, and the 3, 4, 5 steps reflect usage of the cards and the play calls as related to that first table, with some variation and some note on step 2. Step 2 is the score differential table, which is ahead by 15 or more, ahead by between 8 and 14, or behind by 8 to 14, or behind by 15 or more, can cause those letter grades, to go up or down the scale. And if you're calling both offense and defense, then you combine them. If you're calling one or the other, you're just using one or the other. And then the second thing is field position. And that field position is either from 10 to 19 yards, which is either side of the field, or from 1 to 9 yards, again, either side of the field. your side or your opponent's side. So, as I explained in the original video, step 2 isn't going to be used as much because it's the middle 60 yards where you end up spending most of the time in a game. And also your score won't necessarily be, 8 to 14 points is basically a touchdown at 2 point and more. So you're looking at really 2 scores or more to vary the play call in terms of the letter grade. So the cards on the 1 to 5 steps deck will actually they work hand in glove with the first 2 tables and the way that the research was done to figure out the plays. So to give you a sense of where the data comes from, as I think I explained in the original video, this deck and the action deck are both built on 2018 statistics, probabilities, and such forth. So did a lot of research. Pro Football Reference, Football Outsiders, Pro Football Focus, Sharps Football Stats, and about 3 or 4 other sites that I gathered data from to come up with all of these things. So this is a season specific, and so is actually both decks are really season specific. You really could not play with these decks for 1980s games or 1990s games. You probably could play in 2000s. So anyway, alright, so the way the card is laid out, so step 3 is offensive call. So step 1, you figured out your letter. Step 2, you figure, any score, field position. Step 3, you're taking that letter grade and you're coming over here and you're looking at the letter grade and you're saying, what's the play call? Now the play call, again, is based using real NFL data and these situations. The play call is accurate. So you'll see one of the things I think that people will be surprised about is the high number of inside right calls and sweep right calls, but also the number of screens. There are an inordinate amount of screens thrown in the NFL today. So it comes up a lot more than I think even I was really expecting. So, so that's step 3. Step 3A, which is the receiver ball carrier section, because when you look at the tables, so step 3A has, for example, boxes A to E. If you look at boxes A to E, they're all short yardage. Mostly they're focused on 3rd and 4th down, or if it's short yardage and score differential is moving you up the table, or field position is moving you up the table, it's short yardage. So they're all short yardage. So I put A and E together. I put F and G boxes together because they're basically your 1st and 5, 1st and 10, 2nd and 5, 3rd and 5 kind of positions. So I put those 2 together. H and J, or H through J, is the same thing. It's really 1st and really long, 2nd and long, 3rd and long, 4th and long. Are really, so that puts that together. K through M, again, is mostly 4th and short. It'll take some doing to get the table, on the other downs to bring you down the table very far. So it's mostly 4th and short. So again, that's how these boxes are organized, is based upon the yardage. And then there's a section for the run. If it's a run, who's the ball handler? And it's either going to be back 1 or back 2. There is no back 3 call because the NFL usage of 3 backs is almost non-existent. The same thing on the pass side of the table, where it's going to be back 1, back 2, R1, R2, a little tiny bit of R3. And again, it's because and you can look at this, if you look at the team sheets, if you own Football Bones, you look at the card set, look at, NFL stats, you'll see where teams are using specific ball handlers a lot. So those guys, they get the ball a lot. So that's where it goes. That's where the brunt of those initial play calls go. So step 4 and 5 is the defensive call. Because this is set up, it's designed like Status Pro Football. It uses a base defense, which is either a 34 or 43 based upon what the NFL team is actually using. The nickel, the dime, or goal line defense. And the play calls, again, the formation is based upon actual NFL usage stats of this type of formation against these yardage situations. And the propensity of them will match up pretty well. You should get a fairly accurate play call, offensively and defensively, using these cards. So you'll have those defenses. Now, an interesting thing that I didn't realize the amount of usage for 2018 until I was making these cards was that the nickel defense is used about 60 to 65% of the time by teams. So you'll see that call come up a lot. Even in short yardage situations, they're in a nickel defense. They tend to throw. We've seen lots of those little dump off, those little quick wide receiver screen kind of plays. So there is more pass coverage. It's more important for the teams are finding it's more important to have an extra deep back in there than it is to have an extra defensive lineman in there. So that's step 4. Step 5 then takes that base formation, which the base formation is needed for the run battle, the pass block battle if it happens, and coverage modifiers. That's the only reason you have that formation figure. You're looking at the formation. Off of the formation then comes the play call. So there's run no key, which is, somebody's going to run, you're just not sure which back. Run key, and then the specific receivers. Flanker 1, right end, left end, and that's it. It doesn't really bother with flanker 2. And again, that's based upon the actual usage by teams of those particular positions or those particular play calls. So one of the things that I suggested in the intro video is that when you're playing a team, and if you own the game, or if you look at NFL stats, frankly, you'll see where the New York Giants, Saquon Barkley carried the ball all the time. Okay, the next guy's a 4 rest rate. The next 2 guys are actually 4 rest rates, which equates to less than 30 touches. So what if you were playing that team? If you're sitting down to play that, the Cleveland Browns are obviously going to have scouted. Then they're going to say, well, if there's a run, we know it's going to be Saquon, so we're going to run key. So even if the card were to say run no key, you just change that to run key. The difference is actually 2 yards. So a run no key is a -2 on a run. A run key is -4 yards. So there is there is a difference to it. So that's the reason for that. In terms of receiving, it's kind of the same thing, where you can when the play calls, when the card pops up and it says, it's a pass, for example, it's not going to say double coverage. It will say pass or prevent. The option is the way the game is designed, and the way that the thought process is, that you can either ahead of time decide, using maybe the blank template pages or just a note on the display as it is. You could circle the guy's name and say, DC double coverage, right? There is a box L is a double coverage box, and you'll see in certain defenses where there is players there. So what you could do is you could say, okay, on as you're flipping the cards, you come up to the call, and it would be, here's one that says pass and prevent. Okay, so you flip the card, and you're like, oh, it's a prevent. Okay, so I'm going to, because we're in a game situation, I'm going to say, as Cleveland, you're going to be like, all right, I'm going to prevent double cover Odell, right? Or Sterling Shepard, right? Probably Odell. And then you would make the actual call, the rest of the play with the deck. What's basically happening, what you can visualize, is let's say you're in the dime defense and you move Terrence Mitchell over to double cover Odell. So you just mentally note that Odell is double covered, for example. So it's Denzel Ward and Terrence Mitchell. That takes the coverage from a -4 to a -7. To a -14 modifier on the pass. So that's the way to deal with that. So there is double coverage in the game. You just have to remember to make the call. There isn't that much data available. It's really hard to find, where it's almost impossible, actually, if you look at play-by-play. It doesn't say Odell Beckham Jr. double covered, because they don't know, right? You got you got the corner or the safety up or whoever it is up on him, but then the other guy is sitting back in coverage. Well, he's going to come up to the line as the play is called, but it's not a known commodity as we start. So that's a good way to deal with that type of thing. So that's the steps deck. Again, it is using propensity of data. It's using the propensity of a play to occur. You can call both of them very quickly. Like I said, here's a play call without, I'm not going to write anything down or whatever, but here's how fast you can do one. So we'll say it's 1st and 10. It's letter G. Okay, so letter G, inside left. Letter G, back 1. So that's Saquon. Letter G, nickel defense. Again, nickel defense, run no key. Now, I would have already, if I had been playing the game, I would have said in advance, of course, that Saquon would be keyed. So that would just turn into a run no key. So I've now done this part of the deck in 10 seconds or something? So that's how fast you can make a play call using the deck. So now we're going to look at the action deck, or fast action cards. So I'll have I'll have this one probably pop up on the screen. So it's a 1 to 100 number, a 1 to 10 random number. The little box is for the out of bounds. There's a run blocking battle, pass direction, pass block battle, a Z result, who's the penalty on an injury, to which position is injured, if that's the call. So this deck also uses actual NFL data to determine the different run blocking battles. What's the percentage chances of an inside left is going to be met by a defensive player versus a battle. So, like, for example, the card that you will have seen pop up, inside left was B. So it ran into whoever B is, if there is a player in B. Or left tackle versus G, right? How often did the left tackle battle that right inside linebacker position? So again, it uses real data. Pass direction is the same thing. So the step stack is going to tell you who you're going to aim at, but the pass direction is going to tell you who you actually threw at. So it's either going to be original or a position, left end, right end, flanker 1, back 2. And if you're playing in a one-back set, a back 2, because you're going to have 4 receivers. So if Saquon is on the field, for example, it's just Saquon in the backfield, then you're going to have 4 receivers. So you would determine flanker 2, and it is on the note. Cody Latimer is noted here, but of course you can change that. So a pass directed at back 2 automatically, as in Status Pro did a long time ago, this game also redirects that pass to flanker 2. So The Z result: penalty, injury, fumble. There are 111 cards in this deck. There are 100 cards in the Steps deck. There is that's roughly a 9% chance of a Z card type of event occurring. So, which is how often either a penalty, an injury, or a fumble, roughly that's about the rate that they're called in the NFL. A lot of injuries go unreported by the announcers because the guy comes off for a play and then goes back on and nobody notices it. Unless it's Khalil Mack for a play, you're not going to notice, Jannard Avery walking off the field for a play and coming back. But that's how, so I did find data for number of injuries, and, these other, and fumbles, of course, and penalties, and the number of plays, and whatever. So, and then the who the penalty is on, that it's basically a 50-50 chance. And the injury position is there's a larger chance that it's the ball carrier, and every other position has an equal chance after that of having the injury come up for a specific position. So again, this deck moves the action. So I had called the play over here. I've now flipped the cards, so I've forgotten the play. Normally you would have the cards sitting like this, and you could just go, oh, it was a inside left to Saquon, nickel, run no key, which of course we said was run key. So if I were to flip cards for that play, inside left, left tackle, there's a Z on the play. The run number is a 57. We know from the last video that's a normal run. The run 1 to 10, which is the yardage, is 3. So we do the modifiers of the play. The left tackle is a +2, so that's 3 + 2 is 5. Saquon doesn't get tired, no modifier for that. Nobody on defense, 5 yards. We now have a Z. Second Z card doesn't count. There is kind of an interesting variant you could do where a second Z card could count, because then you could have 2 fumbles occur, you could have offsetting penalties, all kinds of fun things. But for simplifying the game, I didn't do that. Alright, so we have a penalty. Penalties on the defense. Number 37, I pull out my handy dandy chart. I read down the D1 column, 37, which I think is actually defensive holding. 5 yards, first down. So would you take the Saquon 5, or would you take the penalty? Well, in that case, you take the 5 for the penalty. So that's a short video on the decks. Again, it uses data that is available, but it uses the data to build an accurate picture for this season. It's not just a bunch of random numbers, and it's not just a bunch of random data. I'm trying to simulate a specific season. This game, as in Football Bones, PTG football, I'm not going to be making a whole lot of old retro seasons and all that other stuff. It's just not going to happen. These things take way too long to do. I don't have that much time to be putting them out there like that. And with the way that the data is collected for the decks, a lot of that data isn't really available. So I end up with a generic deck, which if you really wanted a generic deck, I can make one of those, but I don't know how much fun it would actually be. These decks have the subtlety of the actual season in them. So anyway, that's a quick 25-minute look at the decks. If you have any questions, please post them on the forum or send me an email if you have my email address, and ask away. I'm happy to answer questions. I think this is it's a fun game that can be played pretty quickly, and you can come up with some pretty accurate results, and I think people will have a good time with it. So thank you for watching. If you have not purchased already, please rush out and grab the PDF. It's an immediate download. If you have already purchased, please post some questions, post some game results, post something on the forums. Let me know you're out there and you're playing. And have a nice day.